today. For those that are coming in via Zoom, just a reminder that if there is people talking, we would like it to be one person at a time. There will be some times that there are work time that people might be just having chatter. We understand at that point that those that are virtual may not be able to hear everything super clearly, but please let us know if you need us to slow down or if you need it to be more clear on who is speaking. But if you just be thoughtful about that those that are in the Zoom realm cannot hear as well if you are talking to a neighbor or if you're having a little side chatter, which I know is fun and almost the best part of getting together for real, but it makes it hard for other people virtually to pick out who's speaking and what exactly they're saying. However, I know as a presentation, they've got this pretty well handled, so no worries about that. I did send an email and with some materials, and for those of you that are sitting here, you'll see that in front of you. So please look for those materials. If you have not done yet, please do a name tag so people will know who you are, so we're not guessing today. Especially if you live in a community where people do that thing where they're like, I know that face and I should know you, but I don't know your name, and now I have to do that awkward thing where I'm like, hi, my name is, that awkward thing that happens.
And hope they give their name.
I know, isn't that it? Absolutely. So anyways, I hope you have a good time today. I'm gonna be in my office, zooming away, but if you need something, just holler.
Thank
Have fun.
you, thank you.
Oh, and just a note, this is being recorded, but if something seems too personal at the end, we don't have to utilize the recorder. So please note, or you can save really personal chatter for the end and I will just edit that out. So, cool.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you're here today. And before we get into the meat of our program, we are going to start, as we always do, with a meditation that Margaret is going to lead us in.
And in the front of your, the first page of your,
It's on the
what's
screen.
this called?
It's on the
Oh,
screen.
there it is. Leaving a legacy and legacy projects. This time is all about stories, my story, and what, because of my story, leaves what kind of legacy that's important to me. So we're going to be thinking in and out with this, with that focus, and take the time to stop, to pause, to just, when you hear something that gets you musing a little bit, just go, huh. Okay, later, or make a little note or something, sort of fishing for what's underneath. So sitting straight with your sits bones on the chair, your feet, both feet on the ground so the energy can move through you down into the earth. Breathe in, bring the energy up and out the top of your head, and breathe out, down into the earth. And just find your own rhythm of breathing in and breathing out. We'll just do that for a little bit. Your life is a story, leaving a legacy. Our focus for today. Breathe in, breathe out, 3 times at your own rhythm. And then just as some wonderings about the stories that will come out today. If we started with once upon a time, breathe in, once upon a time. Breathe out, before I was born. I wondered, who will I become? What's the kernel of my existence? Breathe in, breathe out. What is myself? What at the core me do I keep coming back to? Breathe in. What is myself? Breathe out. To whom am I connected? What is my core community? What other communities am I engaged in? And how do they feel in this moment? Run a little scan of yourself. Breathing in, breathing out. And lastly, what are my dreams? Of all we are evoking, what do I really, really, really want in this lifetime? Breathe in. Breathe out. What is my legacy? Breathe in. What is my story? Breathe out. And take your time coming back into the room. Open your eyes when you're ready. Thank you for, I think, feeling that space that we're creating.
And thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was great. So today I just want to welcome everyone here and say we're going to talk about legacy projects. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because that's what we're going to spend the majority of our time. I do want to remind everyone that this is part 2. In part 1, we actually talked about the very important things, the more pragmatic things that really need to be taken care of before you pass. The nuts and bolts of a living will, the information that people will be looking for once you pass, like things like your social security number and things like that. So anyone who didn't come to Legacy Part 1 and wants materials about what are the things that you should do to make sure that the loved ones you leave behind can remember and grieve you rather than having to scurry around looking for documents, I'd be happy to share that piece. So I'm glad we're all here today. And what we're going to do is talk about our own personal legacy projects and other things as well. And I just like to do a couple of introductions. I'm Pat Campanero. I did, like Kelsey said, put my name tag on. And there are 3 other death doulas that I work with here. Margie Nelson, who you've just heard from, Suzanne Sherman, and Jean Skeels. And we work together to bring information to our community about a variety of things that should be prepared before we die. And we work with dying people at the end of life to bring peace and calm to families and to our dying friends. So I'd just like to go around the room though and have you introduce yourselves with your name. And if you have a question or comment that you'd like to share, but I'd like everyone in the room and on Zoom to know who is absolutely with us today. So I'm going to start here with Linda.
Okay. I'm Linda Talley. I live down in the cities, actually in Canada, and been fortunate enough to be around this group a couple times, once on Zoom. And so I'm really excited about this. It really is very thought-provoking, makes you think a little bit, so.
Great.
Marlon Schmidt, former physician. Actually, I'm still a
Oh, you
doctor.
said that, just go with that.
I'm still a doctor, but I no longer practice. Retired. RTD. Retired, not retarded.
Thank you. Let's go back to Sherry.
Sherry Lipscoop, I was here last week and just fascinated with it. This is such a big help. I really appreciate it.
And I'm Dee Brazell, and I'm her daughter. I'm here to help her. And probably to go forward on my own.
I'm Cheryl Larson. I was here last week too. It was really helpful. I really like digging into meaningful things. So this has been really good.
I'm Jan Antridge. I'm an artist. And I just tell my life through the images.
And Ann, you have to unmute.
I did. I'm Ann Mershon. I was here last week and just interested in more follow-up. There's a lot of information. I haven't processed it all yet, but I will.
Thank you and welcome everyone. We're really excited that you're here. And this is a real shared space. So if someone has comments or questions or anything along the way, bring them up. So I'd like to draw your attention to this quote on the screen because I think it sets the pace. It really sets the stage for what's important to me and I hope what's important to you. Carve your name on hearts, not tombstones. A legacy is etched in the minds of others and the stories they share about you. And that's what we're here today to think about, talk about, and hopefully when you leave here, everyone will find about them. So I'm going to start today by doing a short video. Oh, I sure hope it comes up. We didn't practice this. But anyway, this gentleman is the lead person in a legacy project And he talks very eloquently about ideas and values and legacy, but I honestly don't think I'm gonna be able to bring this up now, which is unfortunate. We'll try.
Pat, if you have, what is it called? Something I can look it up and see if I can pull it.
It's that's all right, Kelsey. We're just gonna skip this because Jean's going to do a really nice introduction as well, and it follows on this. So I apologize for this, but I will, it is, the link is in the legacy resources document that you all have in your package, so you can look at this on your own. So let's skip this and move right into talking about the meaning of life.
Yes, we will come to a firm conclusion about that today. We'll be here a little longer.
54, isn't it?
Exactly, that's exactly right. I'll just say about that video that didn't happen. What he was talking about, or what he was going to be talking about, is how do I identify your values, your core values, the things, the words, the ideas that really speak to you and that are important, are at the center of yourself. And I can't say everything that he said, but that was what he was talking about. And I'll just tell you that if you are interested in digging into what are my strengths or what are my values, sometimes that's a hard thing to answer. It's not necessarily very apparent. There is a test you can take, and it's a very friendly test. You're not going to pass or fail it, but it's called VIA, V-I-A Strengths, and you can just Google VIA Strengths, and it'll come up as viastrengths.org. And there's it's more of like a survey where they ask you different questions and you answer, like yes, that's me, or not so much me. And at the end, when you take it, it will give you in order what it believes are your top strengths. And I found that was quite an interesting inquiry. I mostly agreed with what it came up about me, but it was affirming, and it's to uplift us. So don't think that you're going to be judged in any way when you take that, but it's a useful tool. So that's about your core values and identifying them. So now we'll talk about meaning, passion, and purpose. So yes, what is the meaning of life? Well, Pablo Picasso here on the slide had a viewpoint on this, and he said the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. So maybe just take a breath and thinking about that. And finding your gift, I think, is an ongoing thing. And we'll find many gifts over time. But what is the meaning of life? It's a question. It's a question. Philosophers and poets and writers and storytellers have been asking that question for thousands of years. And so it's still a question that you ask yourself. And in my estimation, what I would say that perhaps to find meaning, there's some qualities that we can cultivate. To find meaning, perhaps be curious, be open, honest, enthusiastic, if possible, brave, and have a commitment to living as authentically as possible. And that means being you, not being somebody else, because you are the only you that ever will be, that there is right now. Take a chance to know and express this beautiful and unique person that you are, because we need you to do that. We need you to do that. And I would add, keep in mind that meaning doesn't just come from the easy times or the beautiful times. It doesn't necessarily just come from the joy. We might discover great, great meaning in our struggles and the times that are hard or painful, where there's grief. And consider those things as soil for meaning, that you're growing something in that too. I would just then also mention Viktor Frankl, if you haven't heard of him. He wrote a wonderful book about meaning called Man's Search for Meaning. I would just tell you with a bit of caution that the first half of that book is an intense account of his time in a concentration camp. But he, in his work after that, he was a psychologist focused on meaning, and he identified 3 possible sources of meaning that I'll share with you. And these aren't prescriptive in any way. This was his inquiry, and here's what he came up with. 3 sources of meaning. 1, create a work or accomplish a task, so a doing thing. 2nd, you can create meaning by experiencing something fully or loving somebody. And 3rd, you can find meaning by the attitude one adopts toward unavoidable suffering. So that's about compassion and service and giving and being with each other. So next I'll talk about passion. And again, here's a question. How do you find what is your definition of passion? I would suggest that passion is what Pablo Picasso points us to here. It's to find our talents and our gifts and to know them and nourish them, cultivate them. How do you know what your gifts are? Well, some suggestions are, what are the things that you do with ease? What are the things that you find yourself in what we might call a meditative or flow state, where you just get lost in it, where time seems to disappear? You might think of things that you loved to do as a kid, and maybe you still do them, or maybe you haven't done them for a long time, but you know what? We're still here, living and breathing. It's never too late to identify a gift. You can do it now. And I would just add, when we're trying to find our passion, to take some risks. Step out of your box, do something that seems like, oh, I'd like to do that, but my heart is racing a little bit, or oh, I'm not sure, or maybe that's for other people, not me. No.
Or I'm gonna look funny.
Yeah, I'm gonna look funny. Somebody will judge me. Step through and take some risks in finding and nourishing your passion. So the poet Mary Oliver, in a wonderful poem, said, "What do you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" Yeah, your one wild and precious life. Do it now. And finally, purpose. So I created a Venn diagram this morning. It's brilliant, but it's just on this little piece of paper. So it looks like this. Linda was there. She saw me do it. So it is my work, yes.
Oh, nobody can draw circles like that.
Nobody can draw circles like this. But in this Venn diagram, sorry, Anne, I'll tell you what's on it. So in one circle is meaning, and in the other circle is passion. And then in that center point where they meet, I put purpose. And the reason I put this down was thinking about how these elements or these qualities come together. That meaning is that question of our values and the things that hit us or strike us. Passion, our gifts, what we want to make. Purpose is putting it into action. So we find our purpose when we step forward and we give and we create and we offer. And it's an offering. Offer what we have in our unique and wonderful selves. And so that's what I have to say about meaning, passion, and purpose, and you will find your own things to say about it. So, and with that, I am passing it on to
Suzanne.
Suzanne.
So with meaning, purpose, and meaning, passion, and purpose, we will be looking at how you can bring it forth through maybe the legacy projects. And so on this screen, you see that there's a highway. I think it's a highway. No, it's a board across a bog.
Yes.
The awareness of impermanence can serve to deepen our commitment to living a life of value and meaning. And then this is a quote from Stephen Charleston, and I was wondering if anyone would be willing to read that. Jean?
Yes, thank you. I will read it. You will be remembered. You will be remembered. You will be long remembered by those who knew you best, by those who shared your story, by those who caught a quick glimpse into your heart. They will remember your smile, They will remember the sound of your voice. They will tell others about you, about your humor and your kindness, your generosity, and your courage. Through their words, your life will once again weave its way through the wide spaces of life where it counts, where it matters, where life is remembered and comes to life again. Never worry, dear friend, you will be remembered.
So, as we go into our projects, it dawned on me that we are the ancestors of our descendants. So we will be passing down to them our stories and our either material, oral, or written. And that is how our story will be passed on and we will be remembered. There are so many ways that we can share our projects. One was from Pat as with the nuts and bolts about what you need to do to prepare. And for people who were here last week, I think they remembered. And we will also give you a copy as well for those who were not here. And also the social and emotional, which we will talk about today through the projects. Our ancestors had different ways, many ways, to share their stories, whether oral or written, but also a lot through fabric and painting. And it was a way that, and is still a way, to share their spiritual beliefs, their cultural value, and the historical knowledge. One thing I want to share with you, and I don't know if anyone has read it. Anyway, Anne, it's called All That She Carried. I don't know if you've heard this book. I know you have. And what it's about, it's a true story. And it's about a slave and her daughter before the Civil War. And the mother knew that her daughter was going to be sold. And I can't imagine that. I can't imagine knowing that your child is going to be sold and you will never see this child again.
Didn't you say she was 9?
She was 9 years old. So the mother put together got a sack and put in it 3 things for her daughter to take with her so that she could remember the love that her mother had for her. Well, the daughter did get sold, and then she still kept on to the sack, and she passed it on to her daughter, and her daughter passed it on to another daughter. And it came to one granddaughter, or great-granddaughter, and she embroidered, because it was an oral story before then. And then the granddaughter or great-great-granddaughter embroidered the story onto this sack. And then it got passed down. And the writer of this story is now, remembers her great-great-great-grandmother and is also a professor at Harvard and Yale. So that's one way. I don't know. I don't think I'll be writing and embroidering. I know that. But I highly recommend. It's called All That She Carried. It's just a really wonderful way of sharing a legacy.
And we put that book on the.
And it's in the resources. The book is in the resources. And I also have another thing to share. So anyway, Anne, this is a blue willow serving dish. And this came down through many centuries. This is over 100 years old. It's come down through my uncle's family, and it came to my great aunt. And what I remember about well, first of all, we used this at every single celebration, whether we were at my great aunt's. Then it came down to my mother, and guess what? I got the whole enchilada, when she passed. And it's the whole serving set with everything. I remember this because it was shared at every single celebration we did. Nana used it every time for her table. What I remember about my Nana is that she was an amazing gardener. She was an amazing, she knew what good health was before it was even talked about. Some of the supplements she took, how to take care of your skin, how to exercise. All the things that we are now talking about, this woman did. She would walk miles just to get her potatoes.
She'd walk into town to get her potatoes. She would walk to the butcher to get her chicken, the chicken guy who you know, grew his chickens, broke their neck and sold the chicken to get her eggs and chicken. I mean, it was just amazing. And every Monday we had chicken noodle soup. So I will always remember her because she always came over with flowers from my bedroom. That is my story. And probably there's more, but anyway, I'm getting ready to pass this on. Thank you, Jesus. And by getting ready to pass this on, I'm going to pass it on either to my daughter or to my niece. But this time, when I pass it on, I'm going to write out the story so that it can be passed on in the written word, not just the oral, because so much gets, you know, missed when you're doing just oral. But I know that they don't know the history of this, so that is my gift to the family as I pass this on.
You're gonna put it in you're gonna put your story in it?
Maybe.
You're gonna have-
No, I have a whole set, so I'm gonna give her all 80 pieces.
The gravy bowl.
Yeah, oh, everything. So anyway, but now it's your turn, and so we are very, no, it's not your turn, I'm sorry.
It's Pat's
It's
turn.
It's Pat's turn. I forgot, Anne, it's
Don't
Pat's
skip
turn. I can't.
What
Take it
we're
away,
going
Pat.
to do is we're going to share with you now some projects that we brought just to get the juices flowing. And so you start thinking about things that you might want to do, because there's a variety of things we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to put up, this first one I put up is something that I started after I saw my mother-in-law through end of life, and then my daughter-in-law 30 days later, who died as well. And as I reflected back on that experience, I realized that I have some things that I want to tell people. And quite honestly, Suzanne, I really liked your thought process about oral histories, because if you think about the Campaneros, big Italian family, lots of Italian parties, lots of Italian get-togethers, but what do we all share? We share the red sauce recipe. We all have that recipe, and we make the best red sauce there is. That's about what we share, and it's all oral. So I decided at 72 and a half, that's my age, that I'm going to start writing some people thoughts and memories and stories to share with them. So in this book, there's a page or two for every person with an envelope, and I've started writing letters. And I put these letters in that envelope, and hopefully when they find this document, after I've passed, these letters will mean something to people. And once in a while, I have to take the letters out and put another letter in, because my thoughts about that person has changed. Usually for the better, usually for the better. So I am doing something very personal like that right now. But I also want to share something that I started in 2009, which was just occasional ideas, dreams, remembrances, things I really wanted to do. And the first one here is a document that is a coloring project that I did with my grandson Ashton. And we did this together, and you can tell we're both really famous artists, and you're going to want to own this someday because it'll be worth a lot of money. But then there's also things in this book like cards people sent me, and a dream that I've had forever, which is to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and I have that in this book, and it brings back that thought, and I still want to do that. So I am, as I do my legacy projects, very much in touch with putting things in journals. I really like that piece. I cut, I paste, I put things in journals. That's my way of sharing my story and my legacy. So those are the projects that I'm currently working on, and I just want to segue this to Jean, who has an entirely different concept.
Right, so one legacy project that I have and is in pause right now, although I'm sure I'll return to it. I started this when I lived in Asia, and it's a series of photographs that I took with poetry that I wrote to go with them. So there's a couple here, just you can see there's starfish. The first one was at a temple in China, and here I'm gonna read this next one to you. This photo was taken in India, and the setting was near a mausoleum, but this was out beyond that, and the scene struck me profoundly, and I was very lucky to capture it in this photograph. I don't know actually what that structure is, but to me, it was a temple that I wrote about. So I'll read you the poem and then there's a bit of an explanation to go with it. Make a pilgrimage, one that will truly change you. Not the one to the pretty place, the temple that has been well tended. Go past that one, out into the wilds far beyond, all the way to the lonely edge of shadow and decay, to the temple that echoes of heartbreak and tears. Kneel there amidst the dirt and debris, sit beside despair, hold her in your arms like a mother holds her child. Utter the prayers that have waited, once forgotten, and in the holy emptiness be heard. And I add, I have shared before on my blog about my lifelong struggle with depression and anxiety. Today is gloomy and rainy here in Shanghai, and I woke today in a bit of a depressive mood, and it is all right. I have learned how to be with these waves that come through me, how to sit in visitation, knowing that they pass. Some days that comes easier than others, but I know I have grown most in my life by being willing to go there. I cannot heal what I'm not willing to be with. I know when I make the pilgrimage into these dark places with the light of faith and practice to guide me, the prayers I give to the emptiness are heard. That does not mean there is no more struggle. It simply means I'm held in the journey of what is. We all have such struggles in one form or another, and this poem is my offering to that. And then this picture was taken in Delhi, India. I would just add, to go back to what I said about struggle and pain, or the things that are obstacles to us, can be great sources of meaning and great soil for creating beautiful things.
And here's one last poem that you did, and I hope you'll have a chance to read them all because they're great.
Thank you.
So now Margie will share with us.
So I brought the one in flesh and blood and the copy. This is, I think most people that I know, especially in school when they were kids and stuff, they would do collages, and they'd cut out pictures from magazines and they'd want to make a certain thing. And what I have learned with a group I work with a lot is to make subconscious collages or subconscious image cards. And so the difference is, this is one of the first ones I made. And am I,
You have to turn around just so.
okay, how about this?
Well, no,
No.
your back. Step
It's just
with
your back then.
toward the table. Is that it?
And now
Look
turn-
at the, she's
Look
up
at the
there.
picture, look at her.
Yeah.
Look at her.
Turn
So
your
that-
back.
Okay, there you are.
There.
Because we can see the thing on the screen.
Right.
Yeah.
Except I'm standing in front of it. Anyway,
It's okay.
I can just set this down too, but it's just to get a different sense. And so what I have done a lot more now that I find really helpful is in calling them subconscious image cards, rather than thinking, oh, I'm going to do, let's say I'm going to make spring, I'm going to do a house, I'm going to do flowers starting to grow and it'll signify this or that. But to just start looking around and letting the images draw you and go, oh, that's, I don't know, that's kind of weird. Well, pick the weird things, pick the ones that are uncomfortable for you in some way, and then the ones that you just really love to look at, but try not to make or illustrate any kind of meaning. And so then you've come back, you've done all this, and then you look at it and you go, huh, look at that. Wow, there's like one of the things, and I have brought these two littler ones. They're a little more malleable. But I realized these are two other ones, and if you look, there's like whales and other waters and depths and strength from the past.
No, to her.
Yeah.
There you go.
And then here's a woman swimming kind of like the whales. And so there's all this blue and this plunging and this deepening and the freedom of flowing and swimming without needing to worry about breathing. All that's what I saw in it once I ended up having 3 or 4 of the same thing. And one of the things that was striking to me was there were just some things that you'd see a lot of. I would see more and more in. And so then I started writing those down. And there were things like in this big one, there was like 7 or 8 men in there. And I've been a proud spinster most of my life, and I had just gotten to the place where I thought, I wonder what it would be like to really depend on someone and to have that relationship. And so I just put that out there without thinking how to do it. And the next time, like that was that same year. And if you look, there's 7 or 8 different men with different feels to them. And I didn't start out going, I'm going to make a collage of men. But it was like, boy, you're really thinking about men, aren't you? So anyway, that's it's really fun to do. But the more you can just let it happen, kind of like automatic writing in another way, but the more rich, it's going to bring things up, and if there's a lot of richness there. Great for slumber parties.
Thanks, Margie. Thank you. As you can tell, there are just so many kinds of legacy project ideas, and as you can see here, there's the photographs, a custom message on your tombstone, I don't know. But anyway, family recipes, video projects. And I have an example of a video project when my partner's son was dying. There was a videographer, photographer, videographer who videotaped his whole time with the children. So with the children, with his friends, with his wife, with his mother, his dad. So they have this rich history, and also people saying things to him about what he meant to them. And because he was dying at 34, what his life had meaning, what meaning he had. So one of the things that is going to be so rich for the children is when they get to look at this and hear and see their father's voice, and see him and hear what people had to say about him. I have another one I want to share with you. I didn't know, but came to me. So anyway, we're at the church, there's a funeral, and I'm looking, and this is way back before you had, cremation was just kind of, it was there, but you didn't see the box or anything like that. And there was this casserole dish at the back. I'm looking at this casserole dish, and it's really ugly. And all of a sudden it's parade, it's going down the aisle. And I'm going, you're kidding. The ashes are in the casserole dish. Well, as we got down there and the son stood up to talk, he talked about that the dish was made, the ceramic dish was made by his sister, her first attempt at pottery. And so the mother was so proud, she always had it in the middle of the kitchen table. And so they figured, what a wonderful way to remember mom, to have mom with us is in this casserole bowl. Now, of course, they didn't keep the ashes in there forever, I don't think. But I don't think so. They didn't keep her in the casserole dish, not sure about that. No, I think she's in a columbarium somewhere. But that casserole dish is sitting on someone's kitchen table. And when they see that, they remember the mother. So, I mean, there's so many ideas that you can do. And so we're gonna turn it over to you, and I want to introduce to you our artist friend, Jan Attridge, who is going to share her legacy projects that are just amazing. But every legacy project, before I said that, I'm sorry, all your legacy projects are amazing. Hey, Jan.
Well, being an artist, and at this, I'm 84 now. As I'm looking at my life, and I thought, all I've ever done is paint, and paint people, and paint whatever. But I hadn't recorded my family history. I was always being an empath and going one-on-one with the animals or the individuals I was painting. And so I decided that I, being the elder of the 4 siblings, that I would make a book about each one of us kids and their lives. And I got that idea from Pat Zenkman, who had done it with Blurb Publishing. And she did that with her family. And so I started with my little sister Mary because she didn't have so many kids. She had no kids. She had a husband, a wonderful husband, who was an artist, and as soon as they married in Minneapolis, boom, off they were to New York. And so it isn't very big. I just went through all my photographs. And since I'm not a very good writer, I put, thank you, the photos. And because this really was meant for the family, and now I should have put more text, but either way, I went through her life with images. And I organized them chronologically. This is her husband, who was not only a painter, but a marathon runner. And when he turned age 70, he was the youngest in the group, and he won the New York Marathon.
He was the youngest of the.
He was 70 years old.
Oh.
He was the youngest of that age group.
Oh, okay.
There we go. They have a lot of people running in that group. Okay, that was Jimmy. So then, Mary's life was about her work. And so what I did was take the back half of her story and show her clients, because she cared for them. And she created their websites. And so each one of these really professional images, whoops, just zip along. She could take this book of her life and hand it to her clients, or share it in whatever way. But I had to end it. So what I did was pull back. Wait a minute. I showed she and Jimmy here was the COVID years. Classy New York, right? But here was the end of the personal story for Mary, was when they got involved in Minneapolis and then what they look like now. Okay, and then the rest was all of these clients. But to end it, I asked Mary to write the story herself. So I took this painting that I've done of the Tula Base at the Guthrie, and she wrote her story.
Don't pass it around.
That's the end.
Do you want to pass it around?
Oh, sure.
How about the others?
Oh, the others? Oh,
I think
I'm
the other
trying
one.
to legacy. I had started out with the first book that I published 2 years ago, and that was to tell the story through animals. And so the animals that I had painted in my life, and it was because of my contact over 40 years with the Native American community. And I learned how important animal spirits are for us, because we adopt one, especially when one comes in your life right on that day. What does that mean for you? That butterfly, the bird, whatever. So I'm going to pass this around. The second book, a good suggestion from the local bookstore, I needed to put information on the back. Because the first 2 books were blank on the back, and she said, no, if you're gonna make a book, you have to at least put something on the back cover. So this second book is about, those are animals, because they matter to me. Second thing is the plants. And so these are all the plants that are grown up here, because I grew up in Marshall, which had 15 soil, fertile soil. And I was not used to 3 inches of soil. So it is amazing what people can grow up here. So there we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan.
Yeah.
Woo!
I just want to point out something that you said, when you said, what did it mean to you, or what did it mean to me? And so it's, again, it's not so much, oh, that's a pretty pulsatilla flower, but what does it mean? What's my feeling and the significance, it resonates, you know?
Yeah. And well, when I'm painting, we all are, all of us, I'm sure here in this room, we are empaths. We, as soon as we're within 4 feet of another person, we are feeling exactly what that person is feeling. And so when I'm painting somebody, it is God that's coming through my hand, and I'm blessing that person. So when they finally get that image, or the image of the animals, they've been blessed. So when it's hanging in their room, or in their living room or whatever, it has an energy, and it isn't mine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know what? It's your turn. So if you have stories to tell, or if you have projects you're working on, or if you wish to show something, Linda. we can-
Well, when Jean told me this was going on, and, we talked a little bit about it before I came up here. Yes, texted back and forth.
Excuse me, just for a minute.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
No, okay.
Okay.
You're good.
Speak up a
Thank
little
you.
bit too. I do have a soft voice. I mean, I've had a lot going on like we all have in our lives. And for me, I would kind of say my life began about 40 years, when I was 40 years old. I don't have a lot of wonderful memories growing up. I was labeled a lot. I was, I didn't experience much real joy. I was very concerned about what people thought of me, all of that kind of stuff. And I did marry when I was in my late 20s and had 2 children. But it wasn't until I lost myself in a marriage that wasn't working well. It was 20 years I stuck it out and finally found my way out, which has allowed me to find joy. I told Jean this morning after my divorce, my 16-year-old daughter, I laughed and she looked at me, she said, I've never heard you laugh before.
Wow.
Which is pretty sad, and I wasn't, because it was a very tough time for me, so, about age 40, I went to school. I was still married, and I got my nursing degree, and subsequently ended up working as a hospice nurse until I retired. So wonderful stuff. And my first kind of getting through, breaking out, if you will, and then I got the divorce and all of that. Well, so my life, I feel though, kind of begins with that, but there's been goods and bads and all that kind of stuff, and I've expressed it in different ways. A few years ago, I went to a retreat, and it was for women, but it was also about, I wish I could find the stuff on it. I suppose it was creating your legacy, but what I ended up doing, we all did boxes, and during the week that we were there, and mine's unfinished, but my life isn't finished either. So even the box isn't done. But there's things, I put things in here actually because I was coming up here, which is now, everything's kind of connecting here. This has been just wonderful. But what I did at that retreat, the box I created was probably where I was starting finally to become a person that I liked, because I really didn't like myself. And I'll pass this around. There's just things in here. Music was big for me at the time, water, gems. I was doing a little bit of mosaics then, so I had to stick that on. As you'll notice on the front here, humor has become a big part of my life, so I had to put eyes on my box too. And the heart is unfinished. That's supposed to be maybe someday a mosaic, but I'll pass that around so that you can look at it and just kind of continue. But so I kind of started, looking at things that are not only that were important to me, that, that have been milestones since I became a real person kind of thing. Even before that was having my daughter. So number one for me is importance for me. Now, the significance and difficulty with this, I also went through, 10 years now. My oldest daughter had not talked to me. And my other daughter went about 7 years. So they're both back in my life in their own comfort zone right now. We work through that. But number one, I always wanted to be a mom. And if I had found a different man, done things differently, there'd be 10 kids on here. Because I would have loved to have a bunch of children. I've learned a lot through them. They're both bipolar. And so lots of struggles of their own and things that fit into my life. So this is the most important thing for me. But the things that have moved me forward is finding what they tell us to do. What you told us to do is find those things that you're passionate about, that make you feel human. And becoming a nurse was definitely that. I still have my first badge. So that was in my 40s, and I went through my divorce, and I was also very, very heavy as a child and as an adult. But when I was in my marriage, I got to 250 pounds. So, but that was my baggage, in so many ways, and things that, I couldn't deal with things very much. And am I,
No, I was saying she's a good box.
oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I don't want to have my back to you either, but anyway, so, and there's just some milestones, things I could not think of ever doing, like hiking, because I was too big. Even when I wasn't too big, my head felt that I couldn't do things, or there's just things I couldn't do. Well, I did start, after I started blooming, finally, doing a lot of things. My career was really important to me, but I started running. And I actually did Grandma's Marathon 10 years ago. And I have my little thing for it, but I have all kinds of running shirts and badges and all that kind of stuff. This year, I did a mini triathlon. Slow but good, and I had fun, and I got to figure something out for my 80th. I might go to 75 just in case I don't make 80. But this has been really a huge thing for me, and something of legacy. These are the things that they represent things in my life that I want my daughters to be aware of. And since they haven't been a huge part of my life for 10 years, they don't know a lot of what I've done, or don't really understand the importance of it was for me. So I do that. Volunteering is another area that I found I'm very passionate about. And this is the little girl in South Africa. I did several mission trips down there, and I've been to Haiti. I do Red Cross volunteer now and do deployments. And I was in Croatia this year and did help with a building project. And these things make me feel so good. I mean, you're there to help other people, but it just fills me up. And in some capacity, I will keep some form of volunteerism in my life, because it means so much to me. And so that's a big deal. The other thing is nature. And so I have, I'm going to have to sort this out, because I want to do a journal kind of thing. And I've got to find a way to present this to my daughters. But being outside in nature is important. This is me last month in Glacier hiking. And here's the moose I saw. And this is a lion I saw in South Africa. So, but I find, and I told Jean, when I was out in Glacier and when I am other places, I was doing a short hike. It was 2 to 3 miles, and it was pretty flat and everything. And I told her I was getting toward the end of it, and my face was hurting. And I thought, well, what the heck's going on? I was smiling. I was all by myself, and I just because I loved being there. So that's a really important thing for me, and it's my place to go in the woods usually to regroup kind of thing. So these are, and I have a bucket list. I have, continuing, I've done everything on my bucket list. My top was my girls, to get them back in some way. And I had Kilimanjaro on it. I took it off a few years. I thought, I just, hiking and cold, Jean's done enough damage to me with that. I'm not gonna try to do Kilimanjaro. But, you know, there's things, I keep adding, I reevaluate, and I've crossed almost everything off that I had that I was important to do, but I keep adding, because if you stop, you die then, you know, if you think you got it all done. I'm feeling a sense of, I don't know if urgency is the word, but to do more, to do stuff. And not, you know, and COVID, of course, interrupted a lot of things people do, but I don't know, none of us know how much longer we've got, but I am so joyful now. I love myself. And I've never, you know, that, I actually like myself. I'm a really good person. But I'm saying that out loud, so whether I even thought it before, I would never have told anybody. I think I'm good. I'm always deferring to the other person. So I just have more memories to make, and I'm excited to find a way to pass me on to my daughters so they can know who I was and what was going on up here most of my life. So it's been wonderful. Did I say everything I needed to?
That was fantastic.
Anyway, so this is just exciting. This is a great project. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
having it.
Thank you.
Amazing. And I like you too.
Do you?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Anybody else?
I know that you have a legacy project that you've been working on for many years. What is it?
World's Best Donuts.
The World's Best Donuts. Okay, could you do me a favor and tell the story of how it began? And how it's being passed on? Sherry?
Well, Mom was working at James's, and the bakery had just closed. She was good friends with Irma Coffey, Howard James's sister. The bakery had just closed, and I don't know how they figured it out with no internet or anything, but they found out that if they each threw in $500, they could start making donuts. So they did that. I don't know how they decided what brand of fryer they wanted, but they originally ordered their special flour in 5-pound boxes, and they got Cushman's daughter, Dockside.
Yeah, Christian's daughter.
Yeah, and there was no water there. There was a basement and there were stairs up to the top. So they carried water and they made donuts down there, and they sold donuts. And I made lemon bars at home, and they sold lemon bars, and that lasted about 6 weeks, because you cannot run a store without water running in. You cannot bake at home and sell it to the public. So they went from there. In fact, there was a donut war at that time. Lucy was making donuts, the A&W put in donuts, and so this inspector was around here checking it all. And then finally they ended up where the parking lot is across from Blue Water. That was the old barn that Howard owned. And so they got permission to go in there, move their donut shop there, and had water and everything. Sid Backlund did the plumbing, and it came from here and went there, and I don't know, it went over the bathroom door, this brass tubing, and I cut a pink ribbon and hung on the top of it like it was supposed to be there. And so they would make donuts in the back and then sell them in the front. And Mom would make donuts most of the night. Irma would come in and sell them, and Mom would go to work over at James's. So they did that for several years, and until IGA hired them to make donuts at the store then. And they sent them to school in Wisconsin, so they learned how to work with frozen dough and all that other stuff. And after that, Irma didn't want to be in her own business, she wanted to work there. So mom bought her all and continued, and then as soon as she could replace her $2 an hour, she had the shop built where we are now.
Oh.
And so Stacy and Dee worked for her when they were in the old barn. And Stacy stood on a box. She was too short. She didn't like people thinking she was a little kid, so she stood up. Dee,
I still do that.
Dee, somebody asked her, there was a sign, it said still Stickies. And they
Because I didn't like to talk to people, so I said, I'll just put a sign there and then
she was supposed to say the chocolate donuts were still sticky, but she didn't want to talk to anybody, so.
And somebody wanted to order some of those still stickies. And I went into the kitchen and telling grandma, they ordered some still stickies.
Dee learned to count change, you could work the front as soon as you could count change, and she learned by dimes. So if you gave her $1 and it was 30 cents, how did you do it? You counted 30.
I didn't know it was 70 cents to $1, so I counted from 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Oh, I've got 7, so that's 70. Then I knew to give 3/4 and I must have known then, to give 3/4.
Yeah.
I don't think I just gave them all dimes.
No, you never gave them all dimes, you know how
Then
to.
I knew that 70 cents was 3/4 and a nickel.
But she said she wondered what the gosh she was doing.
2/4 and 2 dimes.
So eventually mom got the shop, and then I went to work with her. And the girls were teenagers then, I suppose, and they worked summers and stuff. And then Donnie joined us. And then mom got sick, and so Stacy, they didn't want the business to die. They liked having Grandma's Donut Shop, but they didn't want to get up that early either, but they took it on. And how long you and Stacy together? Maybe 6, 7 years.
No, we were from 02 to 16.
Oh, that long. And then Stacy decided she didn't like getting up that long, that
My
early
sister
either.
and I did it together for 14 years.
So then Stacy got out, so now it's just Dee. And Kyler that's my grandson. Kyler has 4 kids. The oldest, Ruby, is 10. Max is 8, and even Jamie at 3. They've all got their jobs, learning what to do, and that was mom to replace $2 an hour. Who knew this was
So how many generations so far?
5?
5 generations?
5, yeah.
5 generations, and it's been written down, the story?
No.
Bits and pieces here and there, but not the whole thing.
Because that is, yeah, isn't that that is beautiful?
Yeah.
I have to tell you that some friends of ours were in Prague, and, no, they were in Russia. And so someone coming off a train, and they looked, and here was World's Best Donuts on the cap.
Oh my
And
goodness,
so you go many places.
that is wonderful.
Many places. So, gee, thank you for sharing your legacy, which you will write down. Yeah. We will, well, we always enjoy what you produce too. Yeah. Anyone else? Anne, do you want to add something? Sorry,
No.
to put you on the spot, kid.
I don't have anything specific to add. I just have to say I loved Sherry's story. I just sent her an email thanking her.
Thank you. I sent a letter to the editor about your column about not banning books, but it never got published.
Oh, never.
I enjoyed that column so much.
Yes. Thank you, Anne. That is a legacy. Anne, that is your legacy also. What you do for the
Yeah, I
community.
think my writing might be the majority of it.
I'm sorry.
I think my writing may be the majority of my legacy. We'll see.
Yes. Yeah. the column, you know, I hope you save all your columns. Have you saved all the columns? Yay. Good
Great.
job.
Yes, I have. I keep muting myself again.
Oh, you guys say?
Yeah, I just wanted, this is not
I-
as touching as these other stories. This is the Gunflint Trail cookbook, and it was a woman that wanted to do a cookbook and then got cancer and was going to die, and another group of women agreed that they would make the book, make it happen and carry it on. And so we are in the back. And that's all the people. So it's a lot of resort people, and there's several recipes, but there's stories around almost everything.
Wow.
And I was writing the introduction at one point and ended up talking about how the men actually at the resorts, they're off working. They've got their bulldozers and things, and they go off and move dirt around, and the wives are really the ones that keep it all going.
Right.
And I wrote a little piece about that, and certain women, certain resort owners felt that that wasn't appropriate, and so they like calmed it down, that it wasn't really true that the men had a good, could they just come in and have coffee and cookies and stuff and then go back out in the woods and mess around. So anyway, but the stories are wonderful, and you get an attachment even if you don't know the people or the things about, oh, let's make Gloria's buttermilk pancakes.
Oh,
This is published by local company?
Adventure Publications,
Oh.
yeah.
it's
So,
called A Taste of the
and
Gunflint.
there's a second version now, but that actually has less stories, and they did a revised version that's quite revised, but this is but just that idea of that connection between the value of what you're touched by, what they won't let you write about.
It's great to see the options we have. And that's what we want to really segue into next, is everybody's had a lot of ideas. And in your packet, there is a personal legacy worksheet to take a look at. And we'd like you just to glance at this and maybe some of the conversations that we had here. Write down just a few things that you'd like to think about so that when you leave here, this doesn't become just a folder on your shelf. You start doing your personal legacy projects. This is what we want. So we're gonna give you like 3 minutes to just jot down a couple of ideas here, so that you leave here and you want to do something. You're gonna do music.
Oh, do you want? We'll play some music for you.
So Anne, we're gonna play music. I don't know if you'll hear it, but there's music gonna go on here.
Yeah? Unless I find.
Yeah. Are you referring to this one or this one?
I'm referring to, and you probably, this one. Oh, it's on yellow.
Oh,
This sheet, yellow. Says legacy worksheet on the top. That's okay.
No, I got it. I got it. Yeah, I got it.
I thought you were signaling to me that I should get to work on this. One of us had an understanding, the other one of us didn't understand.
Story of our lives. Yes.
Oh, I mean, once I these, and
Pat, did you write this whole brochure? And then did you ask for quotes or did you paraphrase or?
They wrote their own.
Yeah, like I did it very, yeah, it's better.
I'm not gonna do it, keep the way.
This is
This flyer is part of our legacy.
It's a good point. Probably the first meeting.
Almost away of my. So I'm not going to go away.
Doing a secret painting on.
It's all there's a lot.
So, kids were.
One of the things we talked about,
Following two thousand, she's sitting on the right around.
That's why the music's.
Water all around her. So awesome. Spring. I'm working on it right now. You know.
okay, let's come back together.
We're coming back together.
Coming back together. Take this home, think about it, and at some point in 2023, we're gonna have another session where we're going to ask people to come back together and talk about what happened from this session. So thank you for that. I think at this point in time, I feel like this particular person, lots of things in my head, lots of ideas, lots of ways to go. But Marty had something to say about this slide, and then we're going to close this session for today with Marty coming back with a closing meditation.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I feel very, very full and rich and lots of things popping, not just about what could I do for a legacy project, but just my relationship with people and lives and ways that we are together and what the joy in telling the story about the donuts too is a lot of fellowship and community. So for us, this image here is kind of twofold. It's that I don't know, I'm confused. Wow, there's so much swirling in my head, and then there's another thought, but I don't try to know too much. If you can stay out of the know and just let the other things come in and nonsense things, or the 3-minute writing, automatic writing every morning when you get up in the morning before you start your day. But it is in the not knowing. You can't not know. I mean, that unlocks something and allows other things to come in. So just stay with it, the not knowing. Anything else anybody want to say or ask about?
I want to compliment Pat on the brochure.
And we'll talk a little bit about that when we get done.
Yeah.
So let's, you can interrupt and say you do have something to say at any moment. So let's sit down again.
Say something?
Actually, I am.
Oh, yes,
I want to say
okay.
thank you for that, because that's exactly where I am, is in the not knowing right now.
Oh, great.
It sort of feels like my legacy is done and now what?
Uh-huh.
You know, and so that for me, part of this is about the exploration of what's next,
Yeah.
you know, and the relationships, you know, and it's, anyway, I think that's enough said.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
So thank you for that.
Yeah. So sit thumbs firmly on the chair, feet firmly on the floor. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathing in, bringing energy up from the earth, through your belly, your spine, up into the sky, and then exhaling down and letting go of anything no longer serving you. Breathe in, breathe out. My life is a story. I am leaving a legacy. Let's revisit and adapt my words to your experience so it fits with you. I'll just do a breathe in, breathe out. Today, where have you found relevance? Breathe in, breathe out. Where have you found relevance before you were born? With the kernel of yourselves, where have you found relevance? With your own embodied being, with your connections to others, with your dreams, where have you found relevance? Take a moment to let anything flit in, just notice it. What do you really, really, really want in this lifetime? What is your story? What is your legacy? Legacy to give, legacy to share, legacy to be with others. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Take your time coming, bringing your focus back into the group of us here in this room. Thank you.
We'd like to say thanks for joining us today and remind you of a couple of things that are coming up. Every month on the third Thursday of the month, we have fourth Thursday of the month, it's on this slide. At 6 p.m. we have a Deaf and Grief Cafe. We invite you to join us. It's a time to share your personal experiences, to talk about your thoughts around death, what you're experiencing with grief, with a group of people who really will listen and keep everything that happens there confidential. So we invite you to join that. And in 2023, we're going to continue these workshops where we're going to do, our first one is going to be around caretaking and caretakers, because caretakers need to be remembered and treasured and also relieved of the stress of caretaking at some point. And then our last one that we've planned so far is really about funeral options, because it's just not about going to a funeral parlor and having a box at the beginning of the room and having the whole rope thing that I'm used to, having grown up with. A funeral is something that can be very special. It can be something you plan. It can be something you work with your loved ones on. And there's a lot of different options now, and we're going to bring those options to light. So we thank you very, very much for coming with us today. In your packet, I would say there's just a couple of other things. We do have a resource list where most of the things we talked about are on this list with links. And then I added thing at the very end was a letter to my future self that I really would like y'all to take a look at and think about how and what is you. And that's why I would refer back to what Linda talked to us about. Many of us don't really figure out who we are or what we are until a different point in life. Who knows? It could be when we're 20, it could be when we're 90. But it would really matter if you figure that out, and I really defer to the way you explained it.
Yes,
Because that is exactly where I think many women are at.
yes.
Very many women are at. So that's a sheet that we're leaving with you, and then Jen mentioned the brochure that we're also leaving with you about the Doodle project. It's just something that we're very, very excited about, and we are here to help people work through end of life as well. So that's what I have to say. Anything else, ladies, that you want to add? No? Good. Thank you all for coming.
Just
And
one honor
we're
to have you
very
here.
excited to continue this work. And our emails are in there. Talk to any of us about anything. We're always available.
Could we just take a minute to, for you to tell us that what are you left with? What was helpful, what was not so much, or just where you are now and how this was for you? The yarn.
For me, it was very helpful. You know, I have thought about these moments in my life that were good, that moved me forward. I feel really motivated to create something that each of my daughters can have. So that they can understand a little more who their mother was and where she came from, kind of thing, and on her journey. So I'm really motivated to do that. One of my things for future things to do was to set the time, plan the time I'm gonna start working on it and be consistent. And Jean will be checking in on me, making sure I'm doing it, so.
I'm a taskmaster.
Oh, I know you are.
Can I add one thing? Just, what you said made me think of a very famous quote from Rilke. Are you familiar with Rilke? The poet? Can I read this really quickly? Said, "Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers, which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer."
I love it. Thank you.
It's a great way to have this. Thank you.
So thanks, everybody, for coming. I hope everyone has a good rest of your week. And again, share anything you want at any point.